This is Data-Driven Formula One with Patrick, Henz, and Ganna Pogrebna. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Ganna. Hello, all.
Today we're talking about 1984.
Yes, we are speaking about Orwell and the book. No, we are speaking about Formula One, of course.
That's right. So let's kind of dive straight into it. And as usual, we start with a preview of the season.
Right. So the season, in a nutshell, we see a lot of different people with fastest laps. We see various drivers winning in different races. By constructors, it's a little bit.
Yeah, we have a very big intrigue about who was the best constructor.
Yeah.
Guess, write us in comments. Who do you think won the constructor championship that season? Yeah.
Yes, but nevertheless, if you are looking at the constructors, so if you are on YouTube or on Spotify, where you can see the video version, you see Brabham BMW, meaning the German company entered for first time Formula One, supporting two teams with a turbo engine.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, we can see one win for Ferrari in there, which I'm sure pleases Patrick's heart, and a lot of wins for McLaren, which pleases my heart. So anyway, let's. But I mean, it was nevertheless a very interesting season, especially if you look at pole position and in pole positions and how Nelson Piquet probably was on pole more than any other drivers, but actually it kind of tells you that being on pole can be quite a poor predictor of whether you're winning or not, because that didn't always realize and into wins, right? So and that's something we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, and as I remember the season, Nelson Piquet with the Brabham BMW, I think, was pretty much the fastest car, but also it was a very unreliable car, which
not very reliable.
Yes, and sorry for the BMW fans, but on the other hand, BMW quite new to Formula One, and so it wasn't very surprising that in the first year the engine hadn't been perfect. So it was perfectly fast, but not perfectly reliable as a lot of the turbo engines. But the TAG Porsche engine was much more reliable at that time. And I also very interesting. I mean, we see a lot of different names for the pole positions. We see Elio De Angelis, Nelson Piquet, Michele Alboreto, Patrick Tambay, even Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell. But there's one name we don't see, and this is Niki Lauda. And this is something we can discuss a little bit later.
But we see him in winning drivers. We don't see him on the pole.
Exactly. I mean, we can discuss it already now. As Niki Lauda, after he returned to Formula One, he wasn't he wasn't the youngest anymore, and he was. Also, of course, he had this typical minimalistic driving style. So what people said he did in opposite to Alain Prost, and maybe this was somehow relevant later, he didn't do a special setup to win the qualification. So he wasn't doing the setup to be the fastest on Saturday, but he did used all the time to find a perfect setup for the race. And this may be one explanation why he never had a pole position in 1984.
Yeah, I'm sure that Niki Lauda is the kind of guy that if he concentrates on something, he gets it. So he just probably wasn't that much bothered about maximizing his performance on pole, like for the pole, and he was just concentrated on the race itself. Yeah.
Yep. And maybe we already spoke about the reliability problem of the turbo engine in that year. So this had been also a quite logical point because there was such a high possibility that a lot of people would retire. So you don't have to overtake them on the track. So maybe a quite smart strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we don't know if this will have any impact later. So let's start. And as most of the times we are going south and start the season in Brazil, Sao Paulo in Jacarepaguá.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
victory.
this was the first race for Ayrton Senna.
Right. We saw the debut of local Ayrton Senna. We also saw the debut of Stefan Bellof, a German driver, a driver where a lot of people thought he had the talent to win the championship later on someday, but unfortunately, very tragically, died very young in this sports car championship. So not in Formula One, but in the sports cars, which had been at that time, I think, much more dangerous than Formula One.
Yeah, that's right. And the race was won by Alan Prost. And yeah, not very surprisingly, because like Patrick said, the car was very competitive, and obviously his driving was very good as well. But yeah, I mean, he was very, very lucky with the car, I think.
Yep. And maybe here the advantage reliability, because Renault was the pioneer with the turbo engine, so they had much more experience with turbo engines than the other teams. Even though we have to say that the first team winning with a turbo engine in 1982 had been Ferrari and not the pioneer Renault. So we stay making a trip over the oceans from Sao Paulo to Kyalami. And here we have the victory from Niki Lauda before his teammate Alan Prost. And we see here, for me, the typical McLaren, which is the Marlboro design.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And yeah. And again, we have a first point for Ayrton Senna in in the competition. So it was obvious that it was he was a contender. Yeah, I just want to say that obviously, just to remind everyone that both Prost and Niki Lauda were racing for McLaren in 1984. Yep. And this was mainly between these two drivers, but like Patrick said, Alan Prost was on pole at least sometimes when Nelson Piquet wasn't there. And Niki Lauda not so much. Yeah, but I mean, this is kind of the very standard outlook of the McLaren car that we saw throughout the 1980s. This kind of Marlboro in Marlboro colors. Yeah.
So we are going to Europe, Belgium. The last race at Zolder, as Zolder is a very small track. It wasn't really up to date anymore, which we saw not only due to the fatal accidents of Gilles Villeneuve 2 years later. So the Grand Prix went back to Spa-Francorchamps, which of course also is relatively dangerous.
Very cool track. My favorite. Always rains.
It is. Great track. I completely agree with you, but also of course one of the more
very dangerous
ones.
Yeah, I mean, I do apologize, of course it's very dangerous, but I do like German Grand Prix and I do like Belgian Grand Prix as my particular favorite. I have never been to Singapore. I need to go have a look at the night race at some point, but when we talk about Spa, I mean, this is probably the most intriguing event of the year, because everybody is always thinking, is it going to rain, is it not going to rain, and most of the time it rains, and it's just very, very cool.
But even if it's not raining, it's a very challenging course. I mean, I had the pleasure to drive at Spa, because in the past it was part of the public streets. So
oh wow, cool. So you've driven the circuit?
Yep, pretty much. You can drive up to Eau Rouge, which, I mean, it looks impressive in TV, but if you're driving it, it's really even more. So of course you drive with the normal speed, because it's part of the public traffic.
I've only driven Silverstone and Budapest. Track in Budapest. So anyway, yeah, so that's cool. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
So 84 victory for Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, with the 27 famous from Gilles Villeneuve. So again, for the Tifosi, a quite emotional victory.
Yeah, especially considering that it was in Belgium, where we had the fatal accident.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Then
San Marino, and surprise, Nelson Piquet finally. We see him in the first spot, followed by Alain Prost and Keke Rosberg. Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked yet in detail about Keke Rosberg. That's another really kind of enigmatic driver, really cool. Yes. And yeah, I mean, very unusual for Formula One. So we should definitely talk about him at some point. Yeah,
we have to. We can think if we do a episode or double episodes, including his son. But anyway,
I forgot. Yeah, and I forgot to remind everyone that, we are doing this kind of visual podcast, more or less. And please watch us on YouTube and Spotify, because our podcast is accompanied by some photos. And so we really encourage you to do that, to watch us on video. But keep in mind that we are, this is meant to be a podcast and not a, comprehensive video thing. But we obviously always appreciate likes and follow, and if you could follow us, that'd be great. So that motivates us to continue doing it. And so obviously also share your thoughts, and we're always interested in learning some new things that we don't know. So please leave your comments, and if you know something that we don't know, we didn't mention, or if you spot an error of some sort, so please let us know.
Yeah, because we had some good discussions with people about special topics. I mean, if possible, I always would recommend to see this video version. For example, as from my point of view, the 1980s design is really cool to see.
Yeah. Monaco.
Then Monaco. Again, victory for Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, and René Arnoux.
Yeah, that's right. And
yes, and we already mentioned it in the beginning. Originally, Stefan Bellof finished on the third position, but then had been disqualified due to weight restrictions, which had been somehow related to the construction of the car itself. That's why Tyrrell in general had been disqualified after the year. But it was a rainy weekend, as you see on the photo. And this third position by Stefan Bellof, I think, showed his really exceptional talent.
Driving talent.
Young driver.
Yeah, again, for people who haven't watched previous episodes, and maybe for some of you who do not quite understand why we're saying that, it's because, if you are in superior car and dry conditions, you have a very obvious advantage. But when it rains, all cars slow down. So really, this is really a chance for drivers to show off their driving ability, because even if you are in inferior car, now you have a chance to win the race.
Yeah, and now for the ones who can see the picture, this is the 1984 Tyrrell, and this car was the only car that year without turbo engine. So the last team who had been using the Ford Cosworth engine, which maybe had been an advantage in rainy conditions, as you don't have this turbo gap as we still had in the 1980s. So maybe on the rain a little bit easier to manage. Nevertheless, with an inferior car, a great result, the third position. And the second reason why I'm mentioning it, it's not a turbo car, because if you see the photo, you see the sponsor, it says DeLonghi Turbo. I'm not completely sure for what the turbo stands, maybe because of their turbo vacuum cleaners. But the car itself was no turbo.
Mm-hmm. Montreal. Yes, that's right. The Montreal, and Nelson Piquet again realized his pole position here, and Alain Prost, and then Elio De Angelis.
Yeah. So no surprises here this time.
Well, I mean, surprise. It's a surprise for McLaren fans. Because McLaren fans always want McLaren to win, and McLaren was very strong that year. Okay.
So you may say maybe the surprise that the Brabham BMW lasted until the end, so no McLaren victory.
Okay, no, I just want to say to BMW, we do not, we appreciate all makes and all cars, even if they're weird and strange. But
and don't worry, I think they will get some success in the next years.
Yeah, that's right. Just you wait, BMW. You're gonna be very good.
Yes. Don't just wait. I'm pretty optimistic for you.
Again, and generally, so we discussed this before. I think Nelson Piquet was particularly good on kind of straighter circuits, right, in North America. I think this is really his type of track. When it's more kind of curvy, I think he's less efficient. Although obviously he won those on those tracks as well. But I think he was particularly good on North American tracks. Yeah. Well, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So just to add, Detroit, not a permanent racetrack, but a city track, if I'm right. Lots of accidents, only 5 cars in the points. And
got scored the points. Everyone else was basically was in the collision.
I'm not completely sure about it, because if I remember it right, as the turbo engines not only have been quite unreliable, also they've been quite difficult to predict the fuel consumption. So
yeah.
I remember many times 1-2 laps before the end, the cars had to stop because they ran out of fuel. So maybe this was also here the case for 1 or 2 cars.
Yep, that's right.
Interesting side note, Patrick Tambay drove with a broken leg, and US legend Mario Andretti had been on standby as being a potential replacement for the Frenchman, but it wasn't necessary, as said Patrick Tambay drove with the broken leg. I'm not completely sure if he really finished the race or due to these conditions had to give up.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing how people who compete, they kind of always try to enter the competition despite sometimes having an injury. I personally know someone who is a multiple-time world champion in cycling, and there was a case when he broke a leg before a very important cycling race, and then the next day not only did he compete but he won. So it's there are some people who are just unstoppable, so let's just say. Okay, so we are back to US in Dallas.
We staying in Dallas. So we have 2 races in a row that year in the US. So if we're discussing today if the US should get more races, sometimes, of course, you say this from a European point that the US is not a traditional Formula One country, as they follow more NASCAR or the karts series. But nevertheless, as you see, for example, here in the 1980s, we already had, I think, 3 races in the US in the season.
Yeah,
so
but
it's not also completely new.
Yeah, but I also think that it had to do with logistical reasons, right? So, like now we can transport the cars and the teams and large teams very easily to the other part, to any part of the world, right? And in fact, there is kind of a local team that is there supporting, and the team that comes in and all that. So we have this type of, obviously this is an expensive sport, and that is often the case. But back in the day, the budgets were not as big, let's just say, and you would need to basically transport everything. And we even with Patrick, when we discussed kind of earlier years, we said that sometimes teams would not even enter the North American races because it was too much of a pain to basically bring the car there and the team there, so they would just concentrate on European races. So from that point of view, it's a good thing.
Maybe today, in opposite, today you may consider a little bit more the carbon footprint. So maybe you want to avoid to jump to North America, Europe, going back to US, but maybe have some more races which are nearer together.
Well, in general, I think we already discussed the Formula One culture in the US. It would be good to actually make it more popular. But and for that reason, it might be a good idea to have more races in the US. Also, from kind of economic perspective, it's always, the US market is always providing more opportunities than European markets. Not always. Let me just take that back. Often in many sports. So, but certainly it would be beneficial to have more races in the US.
Yes, and the fact we see this development maybe similar to soccer, which the last years really had been established as a attractive sports also for the fans here in the US. So after various attempts, I think finally soccer or football got a real home here in the US. And especially, I think the Netflix Drive to Survive series, due to statistics, should have supported much that the defense number of fans are growing here in the US.
Yeah, we need to check whether some of the Formula One drivers of Formula One was in The Simpsons, because that's normally how they measure kind of popularity.
Yes.
You know, if someone is not appearing in The Simpsons, it just means that they're not famous enough. So
I can tell you, I remember that Ayrton Senna was in The Simpsons, which
okay. Cool.
this shows how long The Simpsons are already running. I think Lewis Hamilton maybe was in The Simpsons. I'm not completely sure about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll check.
We check these important questions, of course.
Yeah. But because why I'm saying that that's important, because I know that, for example, you know, if we think about football, you brought up football. Yeah. I just remembered David Beckham, and I know that David Beckham was not on The Simpsons, and the reason why, because he was told that he was not famous enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to clear these important questions.
Yeah.
Okay, but now we are going back to Silverstone.
Yeah, so see, like, yeah,
yes.
they said that obviously because of the NASCAR popularity, Danica Patrick was in that, but like I cannot find any. I believe you, Patrick. Obviously, if you remember, drivers featured, but yeah, I cannot find anyone.
Yeah, Ayrton Senna. I see sometimes on Facebook or on Instagram the image, so I'm pretty sure he was on The Simpsons.
Okay, we will find out.
I thought Lewis Hamilton maybe. We have to check that.
Okay, hey guys, if you know, please write us in the comments which Formula One drivers were in The Simpsons.
I'm pretty sure if we ask Chat GTP, we get the answer.
Probably.
Well, but let's go finally to Silverstone and another victory for Niki Lauda. Third position, Ayrton Senna. Two important facts here. Venezuelan driver Johnny Ceccato in the second Brabham. Was it a Brabham? No, or was it? No, it wasn't. The Lotus with Ayrton. No, we have to check this. I think he was the colleague of Ayrton Senna that year. So anyway, he broke his two legs, and due to this, similar as Didi Pironi, he would not come back to Formula One, even though he became quite successful in touring car races, and here especially with the BMW, the BMW touring car.
Yeah, so it was Tolman. He was racing for Tolman. Yeah.
Yes, so he was the colleague of Ayrton Senna at Tolman at that time. So again, greetings to the BMW fans. And on the other hand, Niki Lauda became the high scorer and passed with this Jackie Stewart with 360 points.
Yeah, I do like Niki Lauda, but Jackie Stewart is cool. As we discussed before.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Germany, which is always fun. Ganna Land Prost, Niki Lauda, so no surprises there for McLaren, you know, and Derek Warwick in third place.
Exactly. And again, Austria winning the home Grand Prix, Niki Lauda before Nelson Piquet. So this time the Brabham BMW worked until the end, but nevertheless not won the race. So something we saw that over the time the McLaren slowly became more competitive. So the Brabham didn't have the advantage as in the beginning of the year. Also, Austria, of course, a good place for the debut of Austrian driver Gerhard Berger.
That's right. And Niki Lauda, the winner of the race.
Yeah. Yes, if I'm correct, the Gerhard Berger this year started with the RTS, with the BMW engine. So it was the second of the RTS cars.
Netherlands.
And here, Alain Prost, for Niki Lauda, third Nigel Mansell, and slowly started the rumors about Ayrton Senna. And let's be honest, no big surprise. Ayrton Senna was showing fantastic results in the very small Toolman, so no surprise that the team would not be able to hold this driver. So slowly starting the rumors that Senna would switch in 1985 to the Lotus team. Lotus in 1984 was a good mid team. Lotus was not really competitive anymore as in the 70s and 60s. Of course, a step forward for Ayrton Senna, but it was not a car where you would say you automatically would win the championship.
Italy. Surprise, surprise. Niki Lauda in first place. Michele Alboreto and then Riccardo Patrese.
Yeah, so good result for the Tifosi with Michele Alboreto. This was now the first Grand Prix with all turbo cars because Tyrrell was disqualified.
And then Ayrton Senna got in trouble with Toleman because he forgot to mention, he just completely forgot to mention to them that he signed a contract with Lotus.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like one forgets, let's face it.
Can happen.
Yeah, so, well, obviously, you know, you need to be very careful entering contractual agreements with competitors while you still kind of have, while you still have duties with a different company. So
yeah. This is of course on the one hand completely true. I mean, on the other hand, I mean, again, Toolman was a very small team, and it was completely clear that they couldn't keep Senna. So I mean, if you have such a talent as Senna, to not let him drive is maybe not the best decision, because you got a lot of attention thanks to Senna. So even though if he somehow breached agreements, I mean, not having him started in Monza, I don't think this was a smart management decision.
No, it's not, but you know, it could also be the legal issue, right? As you would know more than me. So I think this is why we always need to report conflict of interest, you know. So there could have been some contractual reason for that, because you are, as a team, you know, we only it's an illusion that you know, the team principal has complete, like, 100% power. You're very dependent. You're dependent on sponsorships. You're dependent on relationships with the press. You are dependent on relationships with FIA. So I'm pretty sure that there were some serious reasons apart from probably you know, related to finance, simply. That you probably wouldn't be able to hold the sponsorships if you had a driver that kind of effectively went to a different team and signed a contract.
Yeah, you could have a good point here. Maybe it was recommended by lawyers to handle it that way. Anyway, we are going to the Nürburgring, which in 1984 had been the place for the European Grand Prix. Victory for Alain Prost, again a very strong result for Michele Alboreto, and a third place for Nelson Piquet. and this was the first race at the new Nürburgring, which hadn't had much to do with the original 22-kilometer track, but was a quite short and modern track, around 4.5 kilometers.
Yeah, precisely.
Yep.
Portugal. Portugal. Yeah.
Yep.
This was
Alan
a big,
Prost,
first of all, yeah, probably we need to say that there was a big break, so we didn't have Portuguese Grand Prix for many years. Like we had them in 1960, yeah. So it's for 24 years, and effectively that year we had one, and Alan Prost was the winner. And notice Ayrton Senna is in the third place.
Yes, and I'm just thinking there also hadn't been a lot of Portuguese drivers. I just remember Pedro Lamy. I don't know if there have been any other one, but I mean, anyway, so even if no Portuguese driver, I mean, it somehow, I think worked out good for marketing reason because, of course, Ayrton Senna was Brazilian, so spoke Portuguese.
Yes.
This was the final race. We keep the tension and not tell you who became the winner. But first,
I can tell you the Formula One drivers from Portugal: Casimiro de Oliveira, Mario de Raggio Cabral, Pedro Chaves, Pedro Lamy, and Thiago Monteiro.
Okay, but I assume the first have been quite in the earlier years.
Yes.
But
that's right.
Okay, so I mean, Constructors Championship, I think here's completely no surprise, and you see the gap in the points. McLaren attack the engine financed by Saudi Arabian company, but engineered by Porsche. 143.5 points. This 0.5 is important, and Ferrari 57.5, so nearly 90 points different, and again 10 points different between Ferrari and the second, the Lotus Renault with 74. Brabham BMW, a little bit disappointing if you see the pure speed of the car, but due to reliability, only a fourth with 38. And interesting, the Renault team only in fifth position, so the customer team with Lotus had been more successful. And then next, Williams, Honda, Toolman Hart also turbo engine, and I think the 16 points are mostly based on Ayrton Senna's talent and not directly based on the car itself. Alfa Romeo with 11 points, and if I'm correct, the last year for the team in Formula One. Ligier Renault, Aros Ford, and Aros BMW, Sella Alfa Romeo, this is 2 points, and then some teams without any kind of points, which is RTS, which switched to BMW, Spirit Heart, Ram Heart, and Spirit Ford. And unfortunately, disqualified the Tyrrell Ford team.
Let's look at the makes. McLaren, we've already seen it today. Very kind of the look that we all kind of got used to in the 80s.
Yes, I'm just thinking, I assume they use this car sometimes for historical Formula One races. Because they took away the Marlboro logos, which they have to do due to local regulations, depending in which country the event takes place.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the design doesn't look anything special, but I mean, holistically, it looks like a perfect car for that time, just from the aesthetic point of view. So no surprise.
Yeah, I think it was quite some there were considerable advantages on aerodynamic side, which kind of shows here. I mean, if we consider other cars, but it's only visible in comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking about comparison, here we have the Brabham Big T53, as it was used that way in the typical blue and white.
Yeah, if you're listening to us on in podcast format, we are looking at some photos of cars online on YouTube and Spotify. So if you want to actually look at the makes, you would have to go to the video format and look with us. Yeah, I kind of like this this make with Parmalat sort of livery, very cute looking, tasteful, but obviously, I mean, here you can see the difference between McLaren, right, and Brabham, for example, in terms of aerodynamics. So the other car is a lot more kind of curvy in the right places, and would have been a lot more aerodynamic than the rest.
Yeah. I think it is also the style of Gordon Murray. I mean, he always had this more edgy designs, also already in the 1970s.
That's right. A Tyrrell that we've looked at already with in the rain.
Yeah, and this car looks a little bit different, which is explainable as it was the only one with a conventional engine.
Yeah, that's right. And as you can see, it's not as aerodynamic. It's quite like more like a karting car, kind of very straight shapes there.
Yeah.
Williams.
The Williams, yeah.
Williams always interesting design. Like notice the back, right? The kind of the tail of this car, very very interesting, kind of very interesting design, and again probably not enough force in the front, which kind of probably made it a little bit wobbly, but nevertheless, I mean, it's nice looking car. I'm not a fan of the livery and where they place the logos. So they're a little bit weird because there are blue and red, and then we also have yellow, and like there's a lot going on here. Yeah, but like I said before about Williams, they have always been a little bit experimental, and they have less resources than other large teams usually. Historically they had that, and basically they would try different technology from various maybe smaller makers, and and they would have to attract more sponsorships obviously, and that's why we observe a car like that.
And speaking about aesthetics of livery, I think the complete opposite with the next car, from my point of view, maybe the most elegant design.
Is it Ferrari?
Which is not the Ferrari.
Okay.
But
I'm surprised. Lotus, yeah. But,
yeah. I mean, the red, it's maybe more passionate, but let's say if we just speak about elegance, I would say the black with the golden JP John Player Special design.
Yeah, I love Lotus, but I think the problem with this car, it's like reasonably outdated because we've already seen very similar makes from Lotus, and I mean, it's just, I think, unfortunate for them that they haven't kept up with the developments. They're a little bit behind.
Yeah, remember they had the problem that I think it was the last year, where they had this new revolutionary design with the cockpit, with the double cockpit, which have been disqualified. So maybe they lost 1 year, and due to this had to come up with something more conventional. We stay a little bit with black and yellow. We have the typical yellow from RTS. Now with a little bit more black and with the new BMW engine.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Which makes sense for a German manufacturer like BMW to also support, let's say, the small German RTS team.
Yeah, that's correct.
This car was nowhere near the speed of the Brabham.
Yes, of course. I mean, and it shows that it wouldn't be, but nevertheless, you know, I mean, it did enter. They didn't score, but they were not disqualified or anything. So clearly, you could at least try. Yeah.
Yes, but Renault.
That we also saw at the beginning. A very cute car, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most tasteful designs in terms of livery, apart from Lotus and Ferrari, probably, right?
Yes.
And very cute car. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I'm not sure what the kind of the inside of it is. I've never seen one live, but looks very good.
Yeah, I agree with you. And another small BMW powered car, the Aeros A7 Aeros, a team which also in the past showed some quite revolutionary designs, but this A7 is completely conventional and you may even say a little bit old-fashioned.
Yeah, it is rather dated, but I'm also quite surprised to see Barkley advert on it in brown or brownish red. I don't know what this color is. While we all know that currently it's blue, so it's interesting when they changed it. Cool.
Yep. And then the mentioned two-man TG184, the car this have been driven by Ayrton Senna.
Yeah. Very. I mean, from aesthetics, of course, it's better than some, but but you can also see, you know, it's white, so it's there are a lot of features that are made just simpler for the team to make, and but you know, we need to keep in mind that they did score points and they did score. Even places in this in this season. So yeah, I mean, it paid off, I think.
Right. Is this the Spirit 101? And I mean, this car looks a little bit as like self-made with the open engine. So I mean, not really surprisingly that it wasn't competitive at all. I mean, you also using the hard engine, which not had the same power as the engines from McLaren or BMW, Ferrari, etc. But at least they have a nice kangaroo.
That's true.
Speaking about non-competitive, same for the Alfa Romeo 184T. The last year that Alfa Romeo had been as a factory inside Formula One. Also, this design looks a little bit dated, at least as very tasted with the Benetton design.
Yeah, that's right. And we have a separate in several special episodes we discussed Benetton team, and
Yes.
So if you want to know more, check it out.
So this was before the Benetton teams as they first entered as a main sponsor, and then due to the interest of the Benetton family, got their own team.
Yeah, that's right. But when we talked about sponsorships, we talked about
Right, we spoke mostly about the sponsorship. You're right. So we stay with Alfa Romeo, the Osella FR1F with the Alfa Romeo engine. Also, let me switch back. The cars really look like twins.
Yes.
So you may say it's somehow a copy of the Alfa Romeo design. Ligier, quite untypical with a lot of red that year. Maybe, not maybe, I strongly assume because of their main sponsor Lotto, which is blue and red.
Yep.
And we finish off
Ferrari.
now with the Ferrari 126 C4.
Yeah, which, as we said, was not very competitive that year, but they did win one race. So, and, you know, that was very, still considering the, you know, the make of the car, it was a good result, I think.
Yeah, it was a good result, but on the other hand, Ferrari won the 82 and the 1983 Manufacturers Championship. So unfortunately, it was a decline, which we will see.
It was a setback, definitely.
For a longer time now with the team.
Yes.
Okay, so finally we come to the answer: who won the Drivers' Championship?
Who would that be? Would that be?
As it was quite close, we will present you not only the photos as usual, but show you some data. So you will see here it was clear it was between McLaren and it was clear that it was a McLaren driver. So here we see the direct.
It was between McLaren and McLaren.
It was between McLaren and McLaren. So here we have the direct relation, Lauda in blue and Prost in orange. So most of the time, Prost had been leading, and practically, oh yes, I mean,
but
only
then
between the,
in the last few races, Niki Lauda, calculated.
Yeah, so exactly, that's it. So it was the computer against the professor. Interesting combination, as you have a team, let's say, of two very minimalistic drivers. So as normally you have this maybe this more minimalistic driver paired with a more emotional driver, but this McLaren had two minimalistic intellectual drivers that way, and most of the time Prost leading only at the 12th race. Lauda bypassed and led practically until the last race. And as you see, Lauda won the championship with 27 points before Prost, which had 71.5. The second time for Alain Prost to closely not win a championship.
Yeah, so it was 72 to 71.5, yeah. And that's also very famous situation, and you know, again, just shows. I mean, if you looked at the winning table, you would probably, if you just counted the wins, you would probably think that Alain Prost meant to win it. But yeah, of course, that's not how the points are calculated. And
I think he also had some technical problems with the reliability of the turbo engine.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, Niki Lauda's kind of strategic thinking here that went into it, right? Yeah, so he kind of decided to go for the steady growth. And, you know, speaking of which, again, like Patrick and I said, Niki Lauda was not on pole at all. And he was the champion without scoring any pole positions. So
exactly,
that happens. Statistically possible. And practically possible, as you can see.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
when
here you
Niki
see-
Lauda. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I mean, also here you see the big gap between the second Prost and Elio De Angelis with the Lotus. So it practically was really just the question who of the McLaren drivers would win.
And then, so we have Niki Lauda, Alain Prost, and Elio De Angelis in the first 3 places.
Yeah,
I think we can go to the next 3.
right.
Yeah.
So then the runner-up, mostly the 2 Ferrari drivers, Michele Alboreto, fourth, divided by Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, and then René Arnoux
From Ferrari.
Second Ferrari. Derek Warwick, also quite a good result for the Renault driver. And then Keke Rosberg and Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell together on the 9th position.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, Nigel Mansell, which until today we not spoke a lot in our episodes, but I'm optimistic this will change in some later year. Okay, behavior.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much already kind of went through it. Obviously, this is a Lauda Prost year, very close. And the notable characters of them, definitely. Notable win. Do you have a pick?
I'm just not that much.
Oh, come on, Patrick! You should have said definitely Ferrari.
Yeah, I not wanted to make the obvious answer. Of course, my Alboreto winning he wasn't winning in Canada with the 27 at the racetrack Gilles Villeneuve. Of course, this was a notable
it was
win, also from an emotional point.
It was in Belgium, right? Not in Canada.
Sorry, yes, in Solda. But of course, the same relation with Gilles Villeneuve on the racetrack where Gilles Villeneuve died 2 years ago. This was, of course, also for emotional reasons, a notable victory.
That's right. Well, let's pick that one. And then, well, accidents. I mean, I guess. Well, I wouldn't pick a particular.
Yeah, maybe we can pick the one from Johnny Cecotto, as it meant that he would not return to Formula 1 anymore. But luckily for him, he became successful in touring car races and is still doing fine.
That's right.
I mean, he retired, but he's still fine.
Well, a notable strategy. Well, shout out to Niki Lauda for what he accomplished. This is a really cool strategy, and this is a masterclass in strategy, I think, when you sort of not kind of being visible on polls, but you in the end emerge as a winner of the championship. It's really cool.
Yes, exactly. And I think especially this intelligence is also the legacy of this season, as we see now. I mean, we had known before, but we saw again that intelligence is also needed to become champion. Yeah,
and coming to legacy, I think that's a good summary of the legacy. But I also wanted to add to that, a winner is a winner, even if you win on a margin.
Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, look, Niki Lauda is a legend. I mean, he deserved he deserved the victory, obviously. But I mean, I think for Alain Prost, I mean, obviously he will get a lot of opportunities later. But I mean, it's always. I just want to say that it's always such a thrill to see a season like that. And I think recently we didn't have much chance to observe the, very close run. So it was always like, either kind of dominated by one driver, or like, we would have sort of, not much intrigue, so it's within the same constructor or something like this, but with some team orders, which doesn't make it very interesting. So but I mean, this was really cool, like when you have half a point.
The closest gap until today, I mean, it cannot get closer than this, because there's nothing less than 5 points so far in Formula One. And by the way, it was the third title for Niki Lauda. The other two he had, of course, with Ferrari in the 1970s. So also a quite impressive comeback after he already retired from Formula One. So he had these 3 victories in complete different times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's, I think, all for today's episode.
That's it. Yeah. Wow. This was the 1984 for you, and as usual, we are present on YouTube and Spotify in video format, and on many different platforms, thanks to Patrick in podcast format. And as usual, we remember the homework to look for Formula One drivers and Simpsons. Oh, let's make it broader. Maybe any Formula One figure in Simpsons could be a manager or an engineer. I don't know. Maybe those exist in the Simpsons. So like anyone that you can find evidence of being in the Simpsons, let us know. And we thank you as usual for being with us today.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.